So I guess you guys knew to be quiet once you saw Mr. Bennett holding the flag here. So I know it says in the program that we're going to have a Pledge of Allegiance. So, you know, I don't like going off script. So let's just go ahead. If everyone can, those who can. I guess I'll leave this, Mr. Bennett. All right. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Mr. Benish. Appreciate that. I want to welcome everyone to coming to our 5th annual Wall of Warriors induction ceremony. I can't believe it's been 5 years already, 4 that I've been a part of, and it's one of my favorite times of the year. We always have this at the end of the school year, and I don't know what it is. There's just something about the end of the school year, especially for teachers and students, that just has a certain amount of promise for what's to come in the summer. Hopefully not much of anything, but I just really enjoy this time, and I think it's perfect for having you guys here to recognize those teachers who deserve it. A few thank yous first. I know Dr. McCann couldn't be here today, but I would like to thank him and Keith Petrosky, President of the Historical Committee here at Vineland, for putting a lot of this together. Dr. Gruccio and other board members who can make it, the rest of the Historical Society, as well as my History Club, who's going to be here reading some of the biographies today. They've done a lot of work with regards to interviewing and finding a lot of the information that we're going to have today. Definitely want to thank Bill Romer and the maintenance staff for putting up the plaques on somewhat short notice there. Do want to thank Champion Trophies as well for putting, again, these lovely plaques together. And, you know, all the family and friends who could make it here. I know it's not easy to come out on a 2:30, 2:45 on a Tuesday afternoon, but I really appreciate you guys being here. Before I continue with the rest of my little speech here, I do want to call Donnie Robbins up real quick, who's going to say a few words.
Good afternoon, everybody. How are you? Good. I'm speaking on behalf of Dr. McCann today. Really big shoes to fill for me. This is one of Dr. McCann's favorite days, but unfortunately one of his dear friends passed away recently, and today is the services for his friend. So he couldn't be here, but he asked me to say a few words. First, I'd like to thank the committee for all the hard work they do. Mr. Petrosky, wearing the president's cap. It's not an easy job, but an awful lot of work goes into this. Mr. Kuzma for the work that he's done. And most importantly, on behalf of Dr. McCann and the administration, I'd like to congratulate the inductees. It's always nice to recognize our staff, our excellent staff, for work that they've done. And I'd also like to extend a congratulations to the previous inductees that showed up. It seems like every year our crowd grows just a little bit, and it's becoming an event that people look forward to and circle on their calendars, as it should be, for recognizing excellence in education. So on behalf of Dr. McCann, congratulations, and thank you to the committee, and hopefully, I know we'll have a wonderful ceremony. Thank you.
I do want to kind of speak a little bit further about the history club that we have here at Vineland High School too. While we don't have that many in actual numbers, we do a lot of work with the history club. In fact, later this week we're going to be heading over to the Vineland Historical and Antiquarian Society, where we'll be doing some research there and trying to find some more volunteer efforts for our students. And that really goes for, I feel like, all history in Vineland, whether that's the Historical Society, our history club, our historical committee, the Friends Historical Committee as well, which I know we have some members here. I think it's really important that we try to inculcate and create this passion for Vineland history, because as we've seen, we have a lot of rich history here in town, and it'd be a shame to see the younger generations not really feel the same as you and I do about Vineland history. So moving forward, I just want to let everyone know how important, personally to me, the history club is, but really to the foundation of Vineland as well, that we hold on to to the history that we have here. What we're going to be doing is we're going to have our history club reading some of the biographies of the inductees today. Once they're finished with their biography, if you would like to come up and say a couple words, you don't have to have a speech or anything. If you just want to say a couple words, that's preferred. that being said, I also, for the first year, thanks to Maxine Mulligan back there, we have nomination forms for next year's Wall of Warriors inductees. So at the end of the event, if you would like to grab one of these, there's all sorts of pertinent information on here that's going to make it much easier and streamline the process, so that way we can have, you know, another one of these great events next year. And like Donnie said, every year there's more and more of you guys coming out, and it's a great thing. And I want to encourage the new inductees and past inductees as well. I know I see Bev Smith. Where'd she go? She was there. She was back there. And thank you, Bev, for the generous donation you gave to the club. We really appreciate that. Thank you very much. So we encourage everyone to come out to these, you know, at the end of the school year. So if you want to pick these up at the end of the event, you can give them to Dr. McCann whenever in the next couple months, however you want to do that. But I do want to get started. I know that some of you are sitting underneath that hot sun there, and I don't want you guys to melt away. So without further ado, we're going to start with the biography of Miss Nancy Masters, being read by Jeff Martine.
Miss Nancy Masters, excuse me. Miss Nancy Masters has been working with hearing impaired individuals professionally since 1973, when she began teaching in Gainesville, Florida, after graduating from Florida State University. She was hired by the Vineland Public School System in 1982 when the Vineland Regional Deaf Program expanded to Vineland High School. Miss Masters was employed as a teacher of the deaf and would remain in the district working within various capacities until 2012. Nancy was awarded the Governor's Teacher of the Year Award in 1989, as well as a number of other accolades relating to her teaching excellence. Mrs. Masters has continued her education, and in 2013 she attained her Doctorate of Medical Humanities from Drew University, winning yet another award for outstanding dissertation in the medical humanities. Nancy claims that one of her most rewarding memories of teaching in Vineland was receiving the NJEA HIP grant, which provided sign language classes and dinners for her deaf students and their families, as well as providing books that taught parents how to sign and read with their children. She is still a familiar face on VHS and continues to be an advocate for not just the hearing impaired, but all students at Vineland High School.
I'm so excited that Jeff read this because I've gotten to know him over, and it's something we're trying to do here. We're trying to make a new sign for Vineland High. So this is something that's been a passion of mine for 10 years. And I'm so excited for this reward because I came from the 910 building, and it's always great for you to honor people who are from the 910 building. I appreciate some of the things that you said. That was what I was going to actually say, a lot of the things, but I will say this. Diversity is being invited to the party, but inclusion is being asked to dance. And when I came here in 1982, Bernice Siebert hired me to bring the Vineland Regional Deaf Program into the high school level. And at that time, most high school deaf students were not included in regular education. They were either in schools for the deaf or in special schools, or perhaps they were even self-contained in a regular school. So when we came here, the idea was that we were going to start inclusion and a program where deaf students would be included in everything. And the students themselves were the impetus behind them. They wanted to take everything. They wanted to take foreign languages. They wanted to take drama and play varsity sports. A lot of them came from different counties. So we had people coming from Cape May that were doing after-school sports. And they just kept wanting to be more and more part of the school. So by the time that I left Deaf Ed and went into inclusion education at the turn of the century, inclusion was something that was very easy and had always been established. And I really think the deaf students are the people who were the impetus behind inclusion of all people in Vineland High School. So today, when any person comes into this building at Vineland High School, regardless of their language ability, their culture, their race, their religion, their ability levels, or their identity, they are not only asked to dance, but they're expected to do the dance that is Vineland High School. So when you come up here and look at my little picture up here, I want you to think and honor the deaf students of Vineland High School, for the original ones and all the ones and the people, any person who has actually advocated for everyone to have inclusion here at Vineland High School. I'm so grateful. Thank you so much for this wonderful honor.
Next, Vineland High School students, 3 o'clock buses will be out momentarily from the 9:10. 3 o'clock buses will be out momentarily from the 9:10. Please do not miss your bus.
Okay, so now David Concordia will be reading the next biography.
Dan Eugene Barcy. Dr. Barcy was born in Vineland, New Jersey in February 1967. The first of 5 sons of Dennis and Nicoletta Barcy, he cultivated his skills as a role model and leader to his brothers during their childhood. Even as a child, he had a great appreciation for knowledge and learning, reading extensively in his free time. A 1986 graduate of Sacred Heart High School, Dan continued his education at Rowan University and earned a master's degree in educational leadership from George Washington University. He was later awarded his doctorate in educational leadership from the University of Delaware in 2004. Dan portrayed a lifelong interest in technology and media into a career he loved, teaching students how to use technology for learning, business, and communications. He worked at Sacred Heart Grammar School, Cumberland County Educational Center, and was a teacher of media for business and technology at Vineland High School. He was also an adjunct professor of education and technology for Fairleigh Dickinson University. Dan left his expertise everywhere he could in both his professional and personal life, sharing his knowledge in a sincere, gentle, but enthusiastic way. As an active citizen of Vineland, he served as president of the Vineland Historical and Equestrian Society and was a member of the VHS Historical Committee. He was also a founding board member of the Cumberland County Technical Education Center Foundation and served as a Grand Knight of Knights of Columbus Council 2531. Dan had many interests and passions and was accomplished both academically and professionally. A voracious learner and consumer of knowledge, he satisfied his many interests through reading, traveling, and college studies. He was committed to family, friends, and his students, readily giving of himself wherever and whenever needed. Dan passed away in 2014 from complications related to a kidney transplant. His absence from the lives of those who knew and loved him is still felt profoundly today. He is greatly missed.
So this one was a little bit tougher than usual, as Dan was a good friend of the historical committee, a good friend of myself and other members here. And like I said, this is my 4th year doing this, my 2nd without Dr. Barcy. And it's gotten more difficult without him, in that he was the one who I could always turn to for anything that I needed, whether that's just someone to listen to you, or printing out 50 programs at the last minute in order to make sure that this thing runs smoothly. When I first started doing this, and still in some degree I have no clue what I'm doing, but especially back then I didn't. And he really guided me along the way. And it's a loss not just for the family and friends, but it's really a loss for Vineland High School. It's a loss for the city of Vineland. And I shared a lot of great memories with Barcy, from checking out the Masonic Lodge with him and Vince to talking soccer. I mean, he knew me for maybe a year, and when he went to Greece, he brought back a soccer jersey from the Greek national team for me. And that's the kind of person he is. And in the biography, when they said that he was gentle, I think that's one of the most accurate descriptions of Dan, was that he was very gentle and never asked for any sort of recognition. He just did it because he liked you and wanted to see things get done. And it has not been easy without. It was a surreal moment having that plaque made with Dr. Barcy's face on it, because I can remember him standing right there not that long ago. There are family members here for Dr. Barcy, but In lieu of them coming up and saying anything, I'm going to have Mr. Vince Luciano accept his certificate, and he will be greatly missed. Thank you very much, guys. Now Tess Fisher will be reading the next biography.
Mr. Ed Nicholanco is no stranger to the classroom. He received his B.S. in Social Studies in 1963, attained an NSF grant in Anthropology in 1975 from the University of Pennsylvania, as well as his Master's in Education from William Patterson University in 1977. He taught for 35 years in the Social Studies Department at VHS South, focusing on U.S. history, American social and political behavior, as well as political and legal education. Mr. Nicholanco was the co-advisor for the class of 1974, as well as an advisor for the Political Science Club, the Ski Club, and the Chess Club. He gained much success as an advisor for Model Congress as well as for mock trial competitions, winning awards in both each year. To commend him for his hard work, Mr. Nicholanco received the Governor's Teacher of the Year Award for VHS South. He was also a member of the statewide Advisory Council on Law-Related Education, in addition to participating in the Hands Across the Water International Teacher Exchange Program, serving in Russia, Costa Rica, and New Zealand. Mr. Nicholanco was highly regarded for his academic knowledge and his ability to contextualize and convey seemingly difficult concepts and make them comprehensible. Today, one can find Mr. Nicholanco playing tennis, traveling, or hanging out at the beach in Sea Isle City.
Thank you very much. I appreciate what you've said. And I've been out of the classroom now since 1999. When you see Dr. McCann, would you please tell him that someone took my parking space? So I had a very rough time, finding a place here. But in all honesty, I started back in 1964. The class of '65 has invited me back for every one of their 5-year reunions. And probably the happiest day in my life, aside from being married and so forth, was when I got my first contract here at Vineland. And it was for $4,800 a year. And I was able to milk from Dr. Podesta, at that time the superintendent, another $100 for my service in the National Guard. But that was sort of like a rite of passage for me, for that matter. And the class of '65 was very meaningful for me. Those first 5-10 years as a teacher here, it was really interesting times because we were going through a transition, especially with something called Vietnam. And one of the things about that war that really hit home as an educator was, I remember when the Vietnam Memorial, and I want to relate this story to you, was set up in Washington, D.C. Keith Bedrosky always aided me with taking political science club kids to Washington, D.C. And so it was just when the memorial had opened up, and I wasn't familiar. I knew that there was a directory, and in that directory, I said, no, I'm going to look up one of my students who unfortunately had died 2 years from the class of '65. His name was John Frambies, and he lived right over here at the corner of Brewster and Landis. And it was that thing hit home in terms of how the people you have in your classroom, you like to know something about everyone, but you don't like to have stories like this. And that was memorable because the day that we opened that, and Keith probably doesn't remember this, but it's well embedded in my mind. It was, I think it was May 24th, and it was the day that and it happened to be the day that it was his birthday, I believe, and we were there at that memorial. And you hear all these stories about happening in memorial. But I just wanted to mention this to you because you never know what's around the corner. And as far as the Political Science Club people, I can't emphasize what that has meant for me. My Department head Chuck Griffiths was second to none. The department head, supervisors Gene DeRemus and Rich Flame gave us a lot of leeway in the directions we wanted. And the big thing was I think we always taught kids to think, not to just go to a book and memorize stuff and so forth, but to give them the alternatives of situations and so forth. And certainly, you know, like I said, we don't know what's around the corner with a lot of things. But I just want to tell you that I'm elated to be here. I'm just a kid from western Pennsylvania whose father was a steel worker, whose grandparents were coal miners in western Pennsylvania. And when I came to Vineland and I saw the wide streets and so forth, I felt very elated. And one of the things this will be the last thing I'm going to say, I always tell my students, whenever I always had seniors, whenever they were graduating, through the year, a lot of them sort of say, well, I go to Vineland, it's not a big deal, you know, and all this other stuff. And they'll equate themselves to the Cherry Hills and, you know, Seneca, all the Indian schools and that, and sort of in a down fashion. And I'm trying to pick them up by telling them, I said, well, you people are so damn lucky, pardon my French, to be in such a multicultural environment for education that if anything, you people are really ready for the world more so than many, many people who are going to be graduating in June. And I would hope that, you know, the juniors, seniors are here and some of the teachers are here would convey that particular message of you being more positive, having your kids be positive, and I know that you know, they're going to function very well in the world. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
All right, now Tithi Thakkar will be reading the bio for Mr. Oliveri.
Mr. Bernard Oliveri began his love of all things technical early on in his life. He graduated from Trenton State College with a BA in Industrial Arts and received his MA from Glassboro State College in 1972. Bernard began his tenure in the Vineland Public School at Veterans Memorial in 1958 and remained there for 10 years. He then moved on to become the first and the only teacher of the Building Trades program at VHS from 1968 until his retirement in 1995. During his time in the district, approximately 12 houses were built and sold for the Vineland School District. It is a fact that many local contractors would ask Mr. Oliveri if he had any good students to recommend for hire. Such was their respect for his knowledge and teaching ability of the construction business. Frequently during his years teaching and after his retirement, many former students would stop by the house to see him. It always made his family proud to see the personal relationship that he forged with the student, and it was clear that the respect between teachers and the students was reciprocated.
Our family is so very proud today to be here. Our children and our grandchildren, recognizing Bernie for his 37 years in the system. He is a product of the system. He went to Vineland High School, all the schools, went on to college, and came back and taught here, as our children have, and one grandchild. Bernie's grandparents came to this country in the late 1800s from Italy. They met in Vineland, settled in Vineland, and our grandchildren right now are the last of that, but hopefully they will come back as our children have and settle in Vineland. One little story that I don't think too many people know. When Bernie was in high school, he was absent one day. He had Miss Ostrander for history. Miss Ostrander asked him the next day, "Where were you yesterday?" He said, "I was at Trenton State taking the entrance exam." She said, "Oh, no." And that was Bernie.
Thank you for that anecdote. Okay, so next will be Gracie Galan reading for Gloria Sabater.
Miss Gloria Sabater was a resident in Vineland beginning in 1958 and graduated from VHS in 1968. She received her BA in Spanish from Douglas College, Rutgers University in 1972. Gloria began working at VHS soon after, teaching Spanish as well as advising the Spanish Club for 21 years. She was a chairperson for the Middle States Evaluating Committee, the Academic Awards Committee, as well as the Foreign Language Department chairperson from 1987 to 1993. She was an active member of the VEA and the CCEA and was named Educator of the Year in 1991. Gloria loved helping the community of Vineland, serving as a translator for local hospitals, advertisers, and local glass manufacturers. She also was a member of the Vineland Juvenile Court First-Time Offenders Program, giving assistance to young people who found themselves in trouble with the law. In addition, Mrs. Sabater helped organizing the yearly Tiny Tim Caroling Program, raising funds for children in need. Mrs. Sabater was extremely loved by her students, and she reciprocated that feeling. Gloria loved the classroom and forever changed the lives of those who were lucky enough to have known her.
I don't really have anything prepared to say, but my mother loved her classroom. She loved every student that passed through her doors. They were like her own children. She treated them that way. They were always welcome in our home. I remember when it was Tiny Tim season, whoever her students were that year, I would come home from school and they would be in our living room putting the labels on the cans and getting ready to go out caroling. I know she's missed even 20-something years later, but it's really nice that she's still remembered. And this is a really, really lovely award. Thank you.
All right, so finally we have Julia reading for Mr. Pasamato.
Mr. Nicholas D. Pasamato was born in Vineland, New Jersey, and graduated from Vineland High School in 1951. He went on to study at Rutgers University, attaining his BA in Romance Languages before continuing his education at Rowan University, earning his MA in Supervision and Curriculum Development. After serving in the U.S. Army and working in the private sector for 13 years, Mr. Pasamato began his career as an educator at Vineland High School, specializing in business and Italian classes. Nicholas became the business department chairperson in 1982 until 1988, subsequently leaving the classroom to transition to a job as the assistant principal at Vineland High School South until his retirement in 1995. While at VHS, Mr. Pasamato founded a DCA program, educating students in the science of business and its application in the real world. He also chaperoned a total of 2 student trips to Spain and an incredible 10 trips to Italy. All the while, Mr. Pasamato remained a member of the U.S. Army Reserve until 1986, finally retiring as a lieutenant colonel. According to Mr. Pasamato, teaching at VHS was a challenging and rewarding experience, especially when meeting teenagers and helping them learn, make good decisions, and mature.
As you may have heard from what she said, I backed into education. In 1968, I was working for Shell Oil in the Plastics Research Center. Dr. Dyer was a friend of ours. We belonged to the same pool club. I said, Charlie, I would like to teach, but I can't afford it. And in August of 1968, I got a call in the middle of the month that they needed an Italian and general business studies teacher at the high school. And I seemed to fit that qualification because I was halfway through an MBA at Drexel. Came out, took the interview with Mr. Barry, went back to Dr. Podesta, and we haggled over price because I knew I was going to take a cut in pay, but I didn't want to starve. So he said, what makes you think you're worth what you're asking for? And very arrogantly, I said, where are you going to get somebody with my talent and experience in the middle of August? I got the job. And one of the things that I learned is that I learned as much from my students as they did from me. One day I was having a class and a young man in front of me was being annoying but not bad. And finally I leaned over and I said, Colvin, when's your birthday? He said, August the 1st. I said, oh my God, that's my birthday. I said, God sent you to show me how I acted when I was your age. And I have to tell you, being a teacher and an administrator was a very rewarding and very, very interesting. And I loved my job. I liked it so much. After I retired, I had no idea I was going to substitute, but I ended up substituting for 17 years as an administrator, bouncing around from one school to the other. And I had the pleasure of working with a number of people. Mrs. Master, Dr. Masters is one of them. And I can tell you that I'm very pleased with it. I'm very pleased that I taught children how to make a living. In fact, the suit I'm wearing I bought from one of my ex-students who owns a store. So it was just a very, very, very rewarding experience, and I'm very happy to receive this award. Thank you so much for your thoughts.
10 trips to Italy, huh? It's not easy. It's not easy. I wanted to thank everyone for coming. We've reached the end of our event here, and I just want to let you guys know how important this is to me. I know that it's we're not offering much. We have your picture on a plaque, and we're giving you a certificate and probably a cheap frame, but for us and for the History Club and for the history teachers here, it's wonderful just to be in the same room with you guys. As an educator, like many of us here, we've heard of you, we've had you, and we've always looked up to you. And to be able to be at the same, well, hopefully the same level one day, it really means a lot to us, and it really means a lot to the History Club. And hopefully you've enjoyed this as much as I have, and the History Club as well, in learning about your past. And I think that's really important. You know, as teachers, we don't get into this job seeking accolades or praise from anyone. I mean, it's nice when you can give praise, that's great, but that's not why we do this. And I think it's deserved for those here, and really for most teachers in general. And I just wanted to give you guys one final thank you. We will be having refreshments, thanks to Maxine Mulligan, once again, in the library. So if you guys want to hang out, have some probably very sugary fruit punch and some cookies, and just mingle and talk with each other, that'd be great to catch up. All right, guys, thanks again for coming, and I look forward to seeing you guys next year at the same time, all right? Thank you.